Hey, good morning everyone and welcome to Casson Academy. It's Valentine's Day, so I am wearing red, at least I got that part right. And today we're going to be talking about remarketing and Google Analytics as well as Google Ads. So the first thing up, we're just going to explain what remarketing actually is, so you have a good understanding of when you should be using it in your ads and how to set up later on in your analytics and your ads. So first off, what is remarketing? Easiest way to explain it, it's you're at a grocery store and you're walking along and suddenly you see something, you take a look, let's call it the Romney creams, okay? We take a look, we like it, we add it to our cart. Then you go along and you pick up banana, Mr. Banana, there we go. You take a look, but you don't feel like it, so you put it back on the shelf. Okay. Now what remarketing does is it reminds you when you get to the checkout that, hey, you forgot to buy me. Okay. Or even if you leave the store completely and you go somewhere else to the store next door and you're at that grocery store, Mr. Banana is just going to appear on your shelf saying, hey, don't forget about me. So I'm going to explain first of all the difference between search and display remarketing, which are commonly used in Google Ads. The first one is the the display remarketing. So that's kind of like you've added or haven't added the banana to your cart, but you go to the store next door, and all that does is it kind of stalks you. When you go from one place to the next, as you're walking around, it's always going to be there, looking at you all the time and reminding you that, hey, remember the one time that you kind of liked or wanted or had interest in adding me to a cart? Well, I'm still here. Come on back and we will interact, or we'll come on back and add me to your cart, and let's go from there. So that's display, and we do that with banners. You'll see if you go to something like Gumtree or to some other site, you'll get a banner along the side of the site which says, hey, don't forget about this product that you looked at on this website. So display, most people know display, and it's going to be easy to show you how to set it up. It's the most common one. You've seen it before. You add a camera to a cart or something like that, and then you go to another website and that camera follows you, kind of like stalking in a way. Then you got search remarketing, which is a little bit hard to explain because this happens on the search network. So with search remarketing, it's changes your valuable position. So let's say you're in position number 3 in the search results and you're searching for something. You go through to that website, you get added to a remarketing list. When you come back to the search results, suddenly you're in position number 1. So it's a little bit different to the display remarketing, where it gives you a better position. You might have been sort of back row, and suddenly when you come back to the search results, you're right there at the front of the search results, because it changes your bid. Your bid might have been something like 5 Rand as a default, and then suddenly once they add it to a remarketing list, you get to bid modify that user, and you can say, okay, for this time I'm willing to pay 500% more to get that user back into my store. So it changes your position. You were in position number 3 and now you're in a favorable position when that person continues to search on Google. So that's the basics of search and display remarketing, and I'm going to show you now how we can get into it. So you should be able to see my screen now, and we're going to jump first of all into Google Analytics, where we get to create our actual remarketing lists. So you have to have a goal in mind. So in your website, if something happens on the page that's favorable for you, so as example, if somebody goes to our training page, there we go, and they go to the training page, what does it tell you about that person? Well, that person's most likely interested in training. So we can add them to a training remarketing list because they've come to that page and there's a good chance that they're interested in what they're looking at. Whether they came organically or through ads or whatever it means, through LinkedIn or social media, they're probably interested in what you're looking at. So now when they leave, you can now add them to a list that says, hey, this person is interested in this product. Now the most general one, the one that comes from by default is the all users. So they don't have to come to your specific page, they can come to any page on your site. and they get added to a remarketing list. That's called the all users remarketing list. Now, where do we find these lists in Google Analytics? We can go to the cog, we go to audience definitions, which is under the property level, and then audiences. Just remember, anytime you see audiences, whether it's in AdWords or if it's in analytics, it's generally talking about remarketing. Remarketing is an option there. I'm not sure why in analytics it doesn't just call it remarketing off the bat, but yeah. So now we're going to go and we're going to click the red button to add a brand new audience. You can see I've got a bunch in here already. You can create an all users one off the bat, and actually if it's your first time doing it, Google's going to create the all users automatically. This basically says that any user that comes to your website gets added to a list so that later on you can use it to target that person in Google Ads. Now that's the all users list. If you want to, you can see there's quite a few predefined ones: returning users, people who completed conversions on your site, completed transactions on your site. So there's some nice set up and forget it ones that are here. Otherwise you can create a brand new one. Now, you can pretty much remarket to anyone with any one of these objectives. That's why I prefer to use Google Analytics, because there's a lot more that you can do compared to an AdWords conversion tracking option. So here you can see that you can do demographics, technology, behavior. Just know that these first few that you see at the top under the audience builder, you can use them for display remarketing, but in most cases it won't allow you to use them for search. You can't use demographics to do search remarketing. But you can use these on the display list. If you're not too sure what is allowed, you can go ahead and add your remarketing options. You go to ads and it's going to tell you that you have X amount of people on this list. And you'll see that some of them will show you inside the ads that you don't qualify. I'll show you in ads where you can find it. This thing called the audience manager. And there's all your lists. If it goes to it and it says that incompatible, that means you don't qualify. This type of list doesn't qualify. Maybe use demographics in there and it tells you, okay, you use demographics. You can see this one is demographics, male 25 to 34. Not allowed on the search network. Is allowed on YouTube and is allowed in display and is allowed for Gmail. Okay, so not all remarketing lists can be used everywhere. So just keep that in mind. But the general rule is it's these options that personally identify somebody, identifiers, that aren't allowed to be used in search, whereas these options down below can be used on all networks. So the most common one is a page level. So like I said, if somebody goes to a page, we're going to take that page's URL, not the full URL. We just need the / option. We're going to go to Google Analytics, and in the drop down we're going to choose just type the word page. So if somebody goes to a page, you can see it right here, that contains my target training, add them to a remarketing list. So I'm going to push apply. Okay. And right away it's going to tell you who you qualify for. Good for display, good for RLSAs, good for analytics, good for Salesforce partners, and so on and so on. So we can use this quite nicely. You're also going to see there's a look back period for 7 days. It tells you that if you were to create this remarketing list now, you've already got 17 people on it right off the bat. So you can change your membership duration. Now, what is membership duration? Is how long do you want to leave those people on that remarketing list? Do you want it to be a short remarketing list? They're on it for 7 days and then you expunge that remarketing list, or do you want to leave them for a longer duration? So today is Valentine's Day. As an example, if you want to remarket to them today, add them all to the list. Next Valentine's Day comes along, you can actually target the people that were there this Valentine's Day. So it's quite nice. So you can go all the way up to 540 days as your duration, okay? But that does, if you go the full duration, sometimes your search remarketing list have a capacity of only 365 days, okay? So just keep that in mind. So if I want to do a Valentine's target, I'm going to put 540 days for training. Anyone that's added to that list, they're going to stay on that list for 540 days unless they clear their cache. If they clear the cache, they're gone. There's nothing you can do about that. But the cookie, as long as that cookie is on the computer for 540 days, then you can continue to remarket to them for that duration. Then we're just going to give the remarketing list a name, analytics for our training. I've probably done this one before, so I'll say training page. Once you've put the objectives in, then you need to attach it to your Google Ads account. So here's our ads account right there. I'm going to attach it and I'm going to publish. As soon as you attach the Google Ads account, you should be able to go over to Google AdWords and refresh it. Remember, to get here, you're going to say Tools and then Audience Manager. You're going to refresh the Audience Manager page. So long as your analytics is connected to your Google Ads in the same account, like we did in the previous videos, it should show up immediately in your ads. Doesn't mean you can use the list right away, but it does mean that it will connect. Okay, so now if I go along and I look for the one with the word page, it should be in here somewhere. Training, there it is, remarketing and a training page. Of course, there's nobody on the list yet because it's just created, it's brand new. Okay, so you need to make sure that you got quite a lot, couple hundred of people on that page before you use it. Google doesn't like it when you have a small amount of people. It doesn't allow you to target them because that would really be stalking if you could follow one person. So you want to try avoid only having one person on your list. But as soon as you qualify, it's going to tell you. So when you start to add it to your campaigns, it might say this list is too small to be used. In other words, you need to wait a little bit until there's 100 people on that list before you can actually use it. Okay. Again, different networks have different capacity of the amount of people that need to be on that list. Okay. So what other kinds of remarketing lists could you make? One of the most important ones, I'm just going to go back here and edit, is something called a demarketing list. So if somebody's already bought your product, what's the point of advertising to them to buy that same product? They just bought it. And it's quite something that I see on the internet all the time. It's quite annoying. You buy a camera and guess what? The camera follows you around. You're like, but I just bought that. I don't need to buy two cameras. I only want one camera. So you want to make sure that you demarket. The objective is exactly the same way. You'll create something like a thank you page or order page, and you'll apply it, and you'll call it order page. Okay, or something just like order. And once you create that page, you're going to go to your campaign, and you're going to stay, instead of adding a remarketing list, you're going to negative the remarketing list. In other words, every person on this list, we actually don't want you to see our ads. So you must keep that in mind as well. Don't want to follow people all the time. Now, the other way to use a remarketing list, it's quite popular, and I'm going to switch back to me quickly. If somebody buys a banana, oh, he's upside down, Mr. Banana right there. Well, maybe he wants something even better, okay? That upselling, cross-selling, that sort of stuff, you can use your remarketing lists in other topics. So if somebody goes to buy something, you can say, well, I've got something that's similar that you might want. That's okay. Unlike the demarketing one where you don't want to sell them the same thing, in this case, if they're buying a camera, well, maybe they want a flash drive with that camera, or maybe they want some lenses with that camera, and it's an effective way to use your remarketing list. So instead of showing them exactly the same product that they just bought, those people that have added to basket, you're going to show them something that they could want after that on their remarketing list. Okay, let's go back to the screen. There we go. And we're going to actually show you how to add the remarketing list now to a campaign. So I'm going to go to Google Ads. I'm going to go to campaign level. We're going to find a campaign. Just wait for it to load. There we go. Okay. Once you're at campaign level, you're going to see an audiences tab on the left-hand side. This is where we're going to add our remarketing list. And click on audience. We're in a search campaign, so this would be a search remarketing list. Now, there's a bunch of lists in here. You can see these lists are all too small, so they don't qualify in this case, because this campaign hasn't been running at all. And click on the edit button. You're going to go to the ideas tab, the browse tab, and then all the way down, how they've interacted with your business, and it says here remarketing. You're going to go down to the ones that will be created in Google Analytics will fall under web visitors. Now we should be able to find that one that we just created, which is something page. There it is. RM and a training page. You tick the box, it moves it across. So these are your running remarketing lists that are active along here. So if I click save now, it's going to say it's too small again because there's nobody on this list at the moment, and it'll show you what you can use. Okay, so just going to do recap again. I'm going to go to browse. We're going to go to remarketing, web visitors, and all your remarketing lists will show down here. It doesn't tell you right away whether they qualify. Again, if you want to see if they qualify, you're going to go to analytics, but it will give you an indication if they're too small. It will say too small to target for Google properties. Please make sure, oh, okay, the target has gone up quite a bit. It used to be 100, now it's 1,000 active. That's quite a lot to use for a remarketing list. So 1,000 active members need to be on this list before you can actually use this list. Okay. Google does change their limitations all the time. Okay, so that's how you add an analytics one. You can get very creative with analytics lists. If it's your first time doing one, then I suggest you just use the all users one. If you actually want to see some results, because getting 1,000 people in a month on a small website is actually quite hard. So you want to take the biggest list that you have. This says 49 to 1.3, so right now it says it's too small, but in some cases it does qualify, or for certain periods of time it does qualify. Once you've created your list, you can go and look at all of your lists again in the Audience Manager, and you can actually see the markup of your list. So you can see my list is only 780, which is why it's not qualifying at the moment. But I can qualify if I was doing a display campaign, because that's got 1,300. So for display, it would be okay. To take a look at your list, you just click on it, and it's going to give you some more details. First of all, how big your lists are for each of the networks. Search is 782, YouTube, display is quite a bit bigger, and so on and so on. Then it's going to show you your demographics of your list, male versus female, as well as age, and so on and so on. Okay, and where your list is currently on, which of your campaigns it's active or showing. It'll show you which ones it's currently enrolled in. You can get some insights on your list. This isn't going to show much now because you're not actually using the list, but it'll tell you what sort of in-market or affinity audiences your users make up. So the people within your list, well, what type of people are they? Are they shoppers? Are they automotive people? And so on and so on. What devices do they use? Which area do they come from? So you can get quite a lot from a list. And just like Facebook, it actually creates similar audiences to the audiences that you make by default. So you can actually start to target people with remarketing that haven't been to your site before. So remarketing is come to your site, get added to a list. Similar to is those guys that got added to your list. Can you go out and find me more people just like them? So similar lists are really good to use for people that you've added to the cart and so on and so on. Google will go out and try to find you similar people to those. Okay, now there's another type of remarketing list. So we just talked about the Google Analytics ones, where you create the audience, any type of audience. Remember, this is quite elaborate. There's a lot of things we can do. We can do ages, genders, we can do devices, we can do behaviors, what sources they came from. Like one of my favorite remarketing lists is those people that come to me organically, target them with ads. So you can actually come in here and say, if the source is Google, if the medium is organic, and if the source is Google, okay, source is Google, medium is organic, that's your organic traffic. We call it organic traffic. You can add it to a remarketing list, and it's a nice way to continue to target the people. They come into your site, especially when people are hunting. If it's a big decision like a cruise or a house or something like that, they're going to go to a lot of sources. So they come to your website organically, you add them to a list, now they go to other sites like Gumtree, and your banner continues to follow them because they've been to you organically already. So it's a nice list to create there. Okay, so that's the analytics-based remarketing list. The next one is the Google Ads remarketing list. So we're back. We had to do an insert because Google, like Google always does, has decided to move something that was there before but now is not there and it's in a different place. So I'm doing this insert to show you the AdWords remarketing, and we're going to continue in the live session. If you watched that, sorry, things were moved and it all went haywire. So here's the update. I'm going to show you now quickly how to do ads remarketing within Google Ads. So to get to Google Ads remarketing, you need to go to the Tools option, and then you're going to find the Audience Manager, and then you're going to go to Audience Sources. We've showed you how to get remarketing lists from Google Analytics, but now we can see that you can also make an ads remarketing list and a YouTube remarketing list. So to do an ads remarketing list, you're going to click on Details. It's a little bit different to the analytics one. The analytics one definitely is the easiest one to do, and it's the most comprehensive one. So there's a lot of options that you have with regards to that one. The older one, which is the ads tag, it's a little bit harder to implement because you actually have to take the code and you have to put it on each part of the site through Tag Manager that you want it to trigger on, and it's a step-by-step process that takes a lot longer than the analytics one. So to set up this one, you're going to locate the tag setup at the bottom. If it's too complicated for you, you can email the tag to your developer. If it's a site that's not WordPress or doesn't have Tag Manager, you can install the tag yourself by putting the code on the page that you want the tag to trigger. So like we had our training page, you take this code that you see right here, and you're going to put that into the header tag on that training page to say, hey, this is my training page remarketing tag, and it's going to fire that way. Or you can do it through Google Tag Manager, which is also a preferred method, a little bit faster than the manual option. And with that, it's going to give you a conversion ID at the bottom here. You can see there's a conversion ID. So you take that conversion ID, you go to Tag Manager, you go to Tags, you're going to create a new tag, and you can call this remarketing tag for the training page as an example. You're going to find the one that says Google Ads Remarketing in the predefined sections. And right away it's going to ask you for a conversion ID. So now we're going to go back to our Google Ads. And down here you can see there's a conversion ID. You're going to put the conversion ID into this part right here. And you have the option to give it a label if you want. So you can call this one training, whatever you want to call it, as a label. And just so that you know the difference between them. And then it's a little bit harder now because than the regular analytics one that fires on every page. This one you're going to fire only on the page that you wanted to fire. So if somebody goes through to our training page, there we go, training. I'm going to say if you go to this page, training, I want you to fire. So we're going to go to Tag Manager. We're going to add a trigger. Instead of being on every single page, I want this to only fire on the training page. I've actually made this one before, but let's make it again. So we're going to call this training page trigger. And we're going to choose a page view. And instead of all pages, we're going to say some pages. If the URL contains training, fire this tag. So if the page URL, you see right here, the URL, if it contains training, fire this tag. I'm going to click Save. Now the tag for training, when I go to this page, it's going to fire the Ads Remarketing List for that page. So if somebody goes to this page, they're going to be added to the Ads Remarketing List. The same one that was created right here. And then you'll start to see people come in on this particular part. Okay, so that's quite an easy way to, well, a much harder way, should I say, than Google Analytics, but it works just as well if you want to get a remarketing list and you do not have analytics. So you don't have to have analytics to do this part. But if you do, then I highly suggest that you use this Google Analytics one. One of the other things that Analytics does much better than the AdWords conversion tracking is you can make a segment. I don't think we've been through segments before, but you can make a segment. Any segment that you have on your page, you can make that a remarketing list. So let's say you're looking at a certain section of the site, you're looking at all traffic, you're looking at something within here. Just going to discard that. Up here you got segments. So anytime you create a segment, let's call it bounced sessions, you'll have the option to create a remarketing list from that segment that you're using. So if you had a segment for like bounce people, you can add them to a remarketing list to try to get them back into your site or tell them that you had an error, direct traffic, whatever it is, you can automatically build an audience straight from analytics. It'll go to the same place, which creates a brand new remarketing list for you, and it'll appear in your ads right away. Okay, so I'm just gonna, before we finish, I hope everyone understands how analytics works. I mean, how remarketing lists work. Does anyone have any questions? By the way, we do have some people watching, so any questions from the floor? Yep, we've got a hand up there. Nice. Shane? Okay, so Shane wants to know, how do we exclude a remarketing list? So we're going to go into here. We're going to go to our filter on observation, browse. Okay, so here you have your audiences, and right next to it, you've got exclusions. Okay, audience exclusion. And exactly the same thing that you saw before is going to show up here now. So you're going to go browse, remarketing list, website visitors. And if we want to exclude the people that have bought, let's just see if I have a thank you page. There we go. So exclude people that have already got to my thank you page and save. Okay, so the exclusions are right there. I'm not going to actually exclude them now with the audiences, but they hide it in the tab just a little bit to the right. You'll be able to exclude your audience. So any remarketing list that you create, you can exclude. You can, I hope that answers your question. Cool. And anyway, that you don't have any other questions, right? Nope. Okay. So that ends our session on remarketing. If you need more information, you can go to our Academy page, and under the how to set up remarketing through the course, just after the video, we got a whole bunch of Q&As and the documentation, as well as the Google Help Center for those articles. Hope to catch you guys next time, and thanks. See you later. Okay, we're out.